Caro, on to the top footy stories.
Well, I've done a top 10 because you know I love a top 10, so I'll whip through them fairly quickly. Number 10, I think you have to say, is the implosion of Melbourne champion Clayton Oliver and all his issues this year, culminating with some real issues involving some really concerning off-field stuff at the end of the season, exacerbated by his teammate Joel Smith, who we found out at the end of the season tested positive to a banned substance in the last game of the year, last home and away game against Hawthorn. And, of course, Melbourne's overall implosion, both in their AFL and AFLW team, going out in straight sets in both those final series. Number 9, the appointment of the 33-year-old woman, Laura Kane, to the second most powerful position in footy. Now, I think that Andrew Dillon, the new CEO, was going for a couple of other people, but Laura ended up getting the job and has done a pretty good job, made a good fist of it so far, but you would not have picked that a few years ago. Brodie Grundy, the very highly publicised trade to the Melbourne Football Club and the disaster that it became. Of course, he's gone now within a year and playing for Sydney. The sacking of Stuart Dew, something that Stuart Dew himself said there was a witch hunt, it wasn't going to happen. The club denied it was going to happen. It happened a week later. So I thought that was pretty interesting. The Ben Keays non-goal for the Adelaide Crows, which should have been a goal. The reverberations have continued. Adelaide Crows have got the most extraordinarily generous fixture next year, and don't think that their president, John Olsen, did not use and manoeuvre what happened to make sure Adelaide got a good deal. They probably wouldn't have made the finals anyway, but it definitely put paid to their finals hope. So it was a disaster. Number 5, the procrastination of Richard Goyder, the AFL chairman, in A, finding a replacement for Gillan McLachlan, B, accepting Gillan McLachlan was actually going to leave, and C, refilling his commission with anyone who'd actually played an AFL game. He's finally done that. I mean, the way it took so long for Richard Goyder to reshape his commission, it took him 3 years. It was just it was a real pity. It hurt the game in many, many ways. So, I mean, we saw things like, you know, I've talked about the Ben Keays non-goal, the lights going out at the Gabba. Those things aren't because there's no good footy people on the commission, but it just highlights the fact that the AFL had some real on-field issues.
And it also felt, Caro, too, the length of time it took to fill the role. Do you think that was extraordinarily long and rather difficult for some of the people who'd put their hand up for the job? Yeah,
and Richard Goyder joked in South Australia that maybe Peter Malinauskas would make a great AFL CEO, and it was pretty insulting given that 4 aspirants were sitting in the room when he said it and had put their lives on hold to go for the job. Look, I think Gillan McLachlan announced he was resigning and then regretted it, and then, to quote Richard Goyder, the Hawthorn stuff happened. And that was an excuse to keep Gillan going. And the clubs did want him to keep going to try and resolve that. It was never going to be resolved. As it turned out, even Gillan couldn't fix that really, didn't really put a full stop on it. So, no, that wasn't good. Anyway, number 4 was Gather Round. We knew it was coming last year, but no one could have imagined what a wild success it was going to be.
You had a blast. You had your party shoes on for the whole weekend,
I booked my tickets next year. And Brendan and the hotel, we're there. Look, it was, and then on the last day of Gather Round, Gillan McLachlan, in one of his last acts, signed a deal with the Premier for another 3 years. So it's around till 2026. That's going to be huge. Number 3, the implosion, I guess, along with many other things, of Alastair Clarkson, 4-time premiership coach, went to North Melbourne, had to stand out of the game after the allegations from the First Nation families at Hawthorn. Started coaching, had that sort of terrible sort of altercation, really verbal altercation with a female journalist, kept coaching for a few weeks, then completely fell apart emotionally, couldn't cope, had almost 2 months away from the game, something you would not have imagined a coach of that, someone as tough as Alastair Clarkson, to just find it. I mean, it was in a way a great admission that he could say that he was really hurting, but it was a massive, massive story, and everything accompanied with it, the fallout with Hawthorn, the enmity with, you know, Jeff Kennett, everyone at the club at the time when he left, obviously his bad relationship with Sam Mitchell. Number 2, the stunning resignation after losing by less than a goal in the Dreamtime game by Richmond coach Damien Hardwick, who was burnt out and time to go. A few months later, found the hunger again.
Wasn't even a few months, was it? It was about 2 or 3.
Oh, it was about 3 months. Yep. No, he was always going to the Gold Coast. I thought, as I think I said. But anyway, that was a big story. When Tom Morris broke that story on SEN on that Monday night, everyone went, gee, did not see that coming. And number 1, Collingwood. The momentum built really from last year for Craig McRae, that whole day to win the grand final after winning 3 finals by 12 points, total of 12 points. The father-son stories, both Nick and Josh Dacos. It's unbelievable. Peter Dacos to have one such amazing, but 2 brilliant sons, the other one winning the BNF this year. The performance of Darcy Moore, another great father-son, the speech he made on Anzac Day, followed up by the speech on grand final day. The coach himself to announce he'd just given birth to his wife had given birth that morning to a baby girl, Maggie.
To little Maggie.
I mean, it was one of the most romantic. People started barracking for Collingwood who couldn't even utter the words Collingwood. So that was, I think, by far the biggest footy story of the year. There you are.
I agree. I think absolutely, and I like your order. I'm not sure I'd put Damien Hardwick second, but look, you're a Tiger.
Well, I think
supporter,
the
so I'll
impact,
let you have that.
the impact on the day it happened.
Oh, I understand that.
And
I would have put the Melbourne Football Club issue, because there have been a lot of issues this year. I would have put that whole thing. And when you said bit of a basket case, is that what you said? I think that was
No, I didn't say that. I think that, there were some big stories that I've left out. The Braden Maynard clash on Angus Bradshaw and the Alir concussion too. They were just absolutely extraordinary. Joel's holding up Tasmania, but that sort of really happened last year. They announced this year that they were going to go ahead with the stadium and it was all going to happen and the licence was granted. You're right, Joel. But I think in terms of a big issue, I think that I thought my 10 were better.
I think it's
bigger.
nice having Joel's. I do agree that Tassie was, because then there was all the political fracas and fallout about the ground and the funding, and it was a good story.
Oh, it's huge. And Tassie's in my apologies. Alir, as I said, the West Coast implosion and that upset against Joel's team, the Western Bulldogs, putting them out of the final, and the Bulldogs issues. I mean, there are a lot of stories around, but Carlton's resurgence, Tasmania. But anyway, it's a subjective game, isn't it?
It was a great season, and I loved seeing Collingwood. As you said, it was just a fairy tale.
And Corrie, the reason I don't mention the death of Ron Barassi is because he is in our next list, I suppose our list of famous valets.
Let's move to that, Caro.
So I think Ron Barassi is probably the biggest name in football, don't you?
Mm.
And we've known for some time that he hasn't been well, but to think he's actually no longer with us it's very, very sad.
It is. It really is sad. And we've completely grown up with Ron Barassi as a playing coach, a captain coach, and then as a coach, and then as an icon and ambassador for the game. And
the 1970 grand final changed football forever. Then he went to North Melbourne and coached them to their first ever VFL premiership.
But also remember when he was in Sydney,
Yep.
he was doing such a great job cementing the reputation of the game generally, not just the club, but the game up there.